Welcome everyone to another edition of the Weekly Aurora. My name is Hugh, and today we're going to be discussing what I call the call of chaos. We're going to be discussing how chaos affects us in our day-to-day lives, not only in how it functions within our universe, but how it functions within our faith. Now, take this with a grain of salt, as a lot of this is going to be my own opinion, and you take that for what you will. You do not have to believe as I believe. This is just me rambling on about a topic. Now, I have done a video about this before called The Balance of Chaos. It was one of the first videos that I did. Now, in that video, I go on about how chaos is the random inherent chance of everything in the universe, how it is this force that causes change within this universe. Now, when I think about chaos, there's one god that comes to mind, and that is Loki. Loki is always the one that people tend to associate with chaos. But when people associate Loki with chaos, generally that's because they see it as chaos being more like evil, for a lack of a better way to describe it, as though chaos is just in it for itself, that if someone is chaotic, that they are just completely off-hinged and could do anything. But that's not necessarily the case. Like I said, chaos is change. So being the embodiment of chaos is simply just like being the embodiment of change within our universe. Now, a lot of times in the stories of our faith, when something big happens, there's a big event to set in motion events that lead to Ragnarok or lead to big things happening. A lot of times when you look at it, either Loki was the cause or he was part of the solution. And oftentimes he is both. Now, a good example of that is the story of how we ended up with Sleipnir. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole story and talk all about it and give a lot of detail. That's not the point of this stream. What I am going to say, though, is that in that story, Loki was the one that proposed the deal with Builder to get the walls built around Asgard. And when it was looking like the gods were going to fail and lose that bet, Loki was the solution to solving that problem and ensuring that they did, in fact, win the bet. Now, in that story, not only does Loki set in motion events that allowed for that story to take place, but he also set forward into motion the events that would help to progress the Aesir towards Ragnarok. If Loki hadn't taken the form of the mare to distract Svartalfari and thus birthed Sleipnir, Odin would not have that horse to ride into battle at Ragnarok. Excuse me, folks. Throat's getting dry. Now, hello, Heather. Hello, Corey. Welcome. Glad to see you guys here. Now, Corey, you do make a good point. Chaos equals change equals plot driver. Yes, Loki is often the plot device that is used throughout the lore to keep the story moving, to keep it going, to keep it interesting. He's often the comic relief. But again, this stream isn't really about talking about Loki. It's more about talking about chaos and that inherent force of change, that inherent randomness within the universe, within any natural system. Now, this random nature of everything, this random nature of reality, is essentially what someone is trying to manipulate when they perform magic or perform a ritual. They are trying to actively have an influence upon that random chance that something will happen or the desired effect will come about. Now, there's all sorts of different methods that people use to affect this chaos and affect the random change. And they could vary wildly from one person to another. So we're not going to get into the finer details about how to manipulate and affect this chaotic random chance. We're highlighting what it is. This random inherent chance of the natural systems to have any outcome is basically a fundamental force within our universe. It is something that we cannot escape from. And it affects everything within our lives. Everything from how our stomach feels in the morning to what happens on our drive home from work. The interactions that you have with other people have an effect, and that effect builds over time. And while we like to think that everything is random and that everything is pretty much given over to that random chance, that is not necessarily the case. It is possible that the possible outcomes to any situation are narrowed down by the course of actions that you undergo, that you go through. So if this random chance can be affected to create a better end, why not try? And the interpersonal relationships that you have with people, the randomness of whether or not you meet somebody and you become a friend with them, can be affected simply by the fact that you can just stop and say hello to somebody that you don't know. That right there is chaos incarnate. That is a random change that you are creating within this universe, because you are stopping and you're saying hi to somebody that you wouldn't normally have stopped to say hi to. That right there is chaos within your life, because that is something that is outside of the norm. That is right. That is pretty much what most people would think of as chaos. So, taking this one step further, we have this whole idea that chaos is the random inherent chance, and I'm pretty sure I've just been saying the same thing over and over again. But every single person feels at some point what is called the call of the void. It is this feeling that you get when, like, you're standing on top of a tall mountain or a really tall building, where for a fleeting second you wonder what it would feel like if you jumped. That's called the call of the void. It doesn't mean that you're going to literally jump off of that mountain or jump off of that building, but it is that call to that primal part of you that just wants to know, that wants to feel what it feels like. And to me, when I feel that little voice talking in my head, it feels like Loki prodding me, telling me, hey, do this, do it. Does that mean that actually is Loki that's talking to me? No, it does not. But I guess this happens as I do whenever I work with Loki in my daily practice, even though I don't even work with him on a daily basis. Now, if magic is our attempt to affect the outcome of this random chance, then magic is essentially chaos. I mean, you can follow this down a whole rabbit hole into the whole realm of chaos, magic, the left-hand path, looking into all sorts of crazy metaphysical aspects of all sorts of pagan faiths. But I'm not in any way, shape, or form a expert enough to talk about magic with a whole lot of authority. I have a lot of knowledge in some small areas, not enough to really dive deep into this for people. Like, I have enough knowledge for my own understanding, but to try and convert it into being able to help others understand it is something that's very difficult for me. And I realize I am now just rambling on and on. I'm going to take a break from talking about chaos and ask if any of you guys have any questions that you would like answers to while I continue to formulate my thoughts, because I'm starting to get jumbled. All right, well, since nobody seems to be asking any questions, we'll just go ahead and continue and move on. So, in my experience, in my own opinion, use of magic is a way that you are trying to create a sort of harmony within your world. Not necessarily with all magic, but a lot of times, at least for me, when I do some sort of magical working, it is to try and affect the balance within my life. I can lose that balance so easily. Small little things can tip me over and I'm a wreck for a while. But finding the balance between the chaos within our world and the order of our lives is what helps to create this ultimate harmony within us. Now, for each person, it could be completely different on how they find that personal balance within their life, how they balance the chaotic aspects of their life and the neat, orderly aspects of their life. For me, I'm way more chaotic than I am neat and orderly. I find it very hard to keep things orderly and in line, balanced just right. There's a few instances in my life, like when I'm at work, where I can really hyper focus and keep everything nice and orderly. The rest of the time, I'm pretty much just a chaotic wreck. And that's fine. That's not a huge deal, but it does cause a lot of issues. finding the balance in my life is something that I have to work towards, and it's something that I'm finding isn't necessarily the easiest thing for me to do, but it isn't always necessarily hard. Sometimes I can find that balance within myself a hell of a lot easier than at other times. But even so, it is more about trying to understand that there are things that are outside of my control. I can't always affect the chaotic nature of the world, but I can affect how I feel about it, how I take those chaotic moments, how I take those random happenings, and how I deal with them. Because while I can't affect the rest of the world, I can affect my life. And I haven't necessarily always done the best job of doing that. In fact, I've done a pretty terrible job of maintaining and managing the order of my life. But that is neither here nor there. So, I just need 1 second, guys. So, I'm going to kind of quote from one of my previous videos and refer to Gununga Gap for a second. Gununga Gap is the formless abyss that existed before the 9 realms. It is that cold emptiness that existed between the realm of fire and the realm of ice, between Muspelheim and Niflheim. It is it's debated as to what Gununga Gap means. Gap in Old Norse pretty much just means void, but Ginung is a debated word of what it means, and it is often said to mean magically charged. So basically, like Gununga Gap would be a magically charged void, a place from which magic comes. And if we apply that to that definition of chaos that we were talking about earlier from the physics standpoint, it kind of fits that random chance of just any unlikely possible thing happening has that magical quality to it when you see it happening, when you see that crazy random thing that just blows your mind. It can feel like magic. And magic, it can be used to divine the future. It can be used to try and affect the physical realm, affect your life, affect somebody else's life. And it is essentially just our way of harnessing unpredictability to narrow the possible outcomes as much as we can to try and get that desired effect. So if we extend that, we can look at it as saying that magic is therefore not only our efforts to understand and predict, but also affect what is inherently unpredictable. It is a way that we can affect the weird, a way that we can affect fate, how we can try and exert some sort of small amount of control. Now, for me, I am on a search to try and find that ultimate perfect method of controlling the chaos in my life and creating the balance that I need. Whether that's going to be through magical rituals that I do or through simple little things, I don't know. Things I've tried in the past haven't worked. Things I'll try in the future might not work. But it's about the journey to find those answers rather than necessarily having them. And so, with that, I will open it up once more to anybody who has any questions and give you guys a few moments to compile them if you have any. Otherwise, we will call this an end for tonight and end up this stream. And don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified when we go live. And yeah. All right, so there's no questions. And with that, I shall leave you guys to have a wonderful night. And remember, there's no one true way. Skull.